Dear you, during the storm. It's you, again, still. Were you glad to receive another letter from yourself? I'm writing to you again because I know that for us, typhoons come and go. There's no escaping the certainty of a new storm. In my last letter, we talked about the process of getting to know yourself. When we prepare for storms, typhoons, floods, and other calamities that we personally experience, we have to prepare the right kind of supplies, the right tools that will provide what we need as individuals. To prepare for a storm, we need to know our surroundings as well as ourselves. In this letter, we'll try to get to know ourselves more so that we can prepare to meet the storm when it comes. Before we start with the discussion, if there are topics that make you feel uncomfortable, you may take your time outside of the space. And if you need help that is urgent, you may reach out to the NCMH Crisis Hotline as shown in your screens. In this module, we'll learn more about self-stigma and mental health. Instances of self-stigma and perceived stigma will be talked about. How do you know when a storm is about to come? Some people say that the earth smells differently. Petrichor is the smell of the earth after rainfall, when the water displaces soil or dust, carrying their scent into the air. Some people watch the sky as it shades from blue to silver to gray to black. Sometimes people are like that. We also experience shades of blue, silver, gray, black. At the end of this module, you are expected to recognize instances of self-stigma in relation to mental health and identify personal stigma against mental health. For this lesson, we will discuss the following topics: definition of mental health condition and a definition of stigma. So, we already know what the mental health continuum is. Just a brief recap. The MHC model demonstrates that an individual's mental health status ranges on a continuum. Each level identifies specific mental conditions and challenges along the continuum. At the latter end of the continuum are individuals with mental health conditions. Most individuals experience mental health stigma. As a person with lived experience, do you know what mental health stigma is? A storm also doesn't just appear. It may gather or disperse over the ocean. The way we talk about typhoons when they arrive to darken our skies, we talk about how hard the wind will blow, how much rain will fall, for how long and where. Knowing these things can give us a better chance for preparing for any storm. This is the same principle that you can take with us into getting to know ourselves. What is your internal weather? And what do you need to watch out for as you try to take care of yourself? We have been talking about mental health for a while now. Perhaps you might be asking, what is a mental health condition? A neurological or psychiatric condition known as a mental health condition manifests as a definite, clinically significant disturbance in a person's cognition, emotional control, or behavior. It is caused by either genetic or acquired dysfunction in the neurobiological, psychosocial, or developmental processes that underlie mental functioning. Similarly, the World Health Organization expanded on the definition of mental health condition to include both mental disorders and psychosocial disabilities. It also includes various mental conditions linked to distress, functional limitations, or the possibility of self-harm. But when do we consider someone has a mental health condition? In psychology, many definitions of abnormality have been proposed over the years, but none has received universal acceptance. Nevertheless, most reports share what are frequently referred to as the 4Ds: deviance, distress, dysfunction, and danger. In other words, mental health conditions tend to have patterns that are deviant, different, extreme, unusual, possibly even bizarre, distressing, unpleasant and upsetting to the person, dysfunctional, interfering with the person's ability to conduct daily activities productively, and possibly even dangerous. This definition is an excellent place to investigate the phenomenon of mental health condition. As demonstrated, however, it has significant limitations. Deviance, on the other hand, is described as unusual behaviors that do not conform to cultural aspects or norms. For example, believing that supernatural creatures are threatening your safety, you perform a ritual you created on your own. Distress occurs when a behavior makes a person feel anxious, uneasy, or otherwise negatively affected, whether they are the one experiencing it or someone else. For example, you may feel down. You have intense and overwhelming emotions you can't explain. You haven't taken a bath in 4 days. You don't feel like you can get out of bed. And you won't reply to texts from your friends. This situation clearly shows that you are in distress. Dysfunction is the inability to function correctly. At this point, a person has significant impairment in one life area, such as work, home, interpersonal, or social life. For example, you have been absent from work for 3 weeks, causing you to lose your job. You have not responded to any of your family or friends. You sit at home all day and stare at a wall. Danger includes behaviors that endanger the person or those around them. For example, during your manic phase, you frequently go to the casino and bet your rent money on roulette. Because you bet all your rent money on the casino and lost, you will be unable to pay for your apartment. It causes danger not only to yourself, but also to the people you share the room with. When you experience strong winds, rain that pours for hours on end, the lightning and thunder that might follow or precede a terrible downpour, you are better equipped to recognize a brewing storm. But for your internal weather, noticing and becoming aware of your behavior is not an easy task. This is why I'm writing to you now. Knowing yourself is not as easy as looking up at the sky to check the rain. You know about deviance, distress, dysfunction, and danger, but living day to day with yourself may make it more difficult to notice these changes and harder still to acknowledge them. Now that we are aware of the criteria used to classify certain conditions as mental health issues, we have to understand that stigma is a prevalent issue concerning mental health conditions. Stigma is defined by the WHO as a mark of shame, disgrace, or disapproval that results in an individual being rejected, discriminated against, and excluded from participating in a number of different areas of society. Stigma is simply described as a mark of shame or discredit in the dictionary. However, in order to fully define stigma in the context of mental health, we must consider how it affects an individual and their perception of themselves and others. Before we continue and discuss stigma in depth, let us first have a pre-test about stigma. In your learning management system, a pre-test about stigma could be answered. Hopefully, you know what stigma is. But don't be pressured. We'll get to know stigma better in the next video. For the meantime, answer the quiz in our LMS.